You think you need closure, but what you're really craving is peace. You feel unsettled, you feel stuck, like a door never fully closed, like a part of you is still standing in a moment, still waiting for a conversation that never happened, still replaying that moment that somebody ghosted you with no explanation, still hoping that your ex will finally tell you why they left, still wishing that your old friend would finally just tell you and admit that they messed up. Or you're still carrying the guilt over somebody that you lost and never got to say goodbye. So you just keep thinking, if they would only explain, if they would only apologize, if I only had one more minute, then maybe, just maybe, I'd be able to let go. I'd be able to move on with my life. But what if I told you you don't need closure to move on? You need to make a decision to move on. And it's possible. So stick around and I'm going to walk you through it. See, the reason that closure feels so important is because it's your mind trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. You know, we weren't built, our mind wasn't built for these open loops. You see, our brain and our hearts are wired to seek resolution. And so when something doesn't get resolved, it doesn't just fade away, it actually follows us. We take it with us for the rest of our lives until we deal with it. That's why something that happens whenever you're 6 years old, like being abandoned, ignored, or made to feel unworthy, can still affect how you love, how you trust, how you show up, even at 36 years old. Because when that loop doesn't close, you just carry it with you. Psychologists call it the Zeigarnik effect. And it's the idea that your brain holds on to unfinished experiences more intensely than it does completed experiences. Because it wants completion. It wants to close the file. It wants the story to make sense so it can finally rest. And when it doesn't, you replay it, you overanalyze it, you create possible explanations, and you imagine what you should have said or should have done or what you wish they would have said or how it should have ended. Most people think that they're waiting for closure, that they need closure, when in reality what they want and what they're seeking is certainty. A way to make that pain make sense. A way to believe that it wasn't just all for nothing, but it's a way to get that power back that they felt like they lost in that moment that it fell all apart. Because when something ends without answers, it leaves you feeling powerless. And deep down, you hope that by understanding it will somehow make that pain easier to carry. You know, we think if they would just explain it, if they'd just admit it, if they'd just apologize, if I could just have one more minute, then maybe you'd feel peace. Then maybe you could finally let go. But here's the truth. Closure is not always possible. Sometimes they won't apologize. Sometimes they won't explain it. Sometimes they won't admit it. And sometimes they're gone. And if you keep waiting for that moment, that conversation, that resolution, that clean emotional bow, you'll just stay stuck. Not stuck in the past, but stuck in the version of the past that you keep rewriting in your head. You're trying to heal with information that you may never get, trying to make peace through someone who may never give it to you, or waiting on people who aren't coming back, waiting on words that may never be said. You're waiting on your version of closure, one that's probably not going to come. And I know how real that feels because I've lived it. There are two stories in particular that have stayed with me concerning where I really cared about somebody and didn't get closure. One, so I had a cousin that I grew up with. We grew up best friends. And when I was 13, I moved away. And he told me later on in life, he said, man, whenever you moved, it was just like my best friend left. Well, I mean, we were kids, but he turned into a massive drug addict. And he is currently addicted to fentanyl, doing whatever, addicts do. And there was a piece of me for a long time that really thought like, damn, if I never moved, would he have still turned out like that? And for years I carried the guilt. And I was always thinking, maybe if I had just stayed, it wouldn't have turned out that way. But eventually I had to make peace with something. It wasn't mine to carry. I didn't abandon him. We were kids. Life happened. I just moved. But that open loop stayed with me for a while because I never closed it. Then there was another moment that comes to mind. I had a good buddy named John. Incredible guy, big heart, loved him to death. He would give anybody the shirt off of his back. He definitely had some demons. He was an addict as well. But one day he calls me and he told me, he said, I need to start over. He said he needed a fresh start, and so he asked if he could come stay with me and my wife for a little while. And I said no. Part of me felt like he was just running from his problems again, and part of me was just being real. We didn't have space. But I never talked to him again after that call. And a year later, I got a text message that told me that John had killed himself. And for a while, that messed with me. You know, that what if hung over me. What if I had said yes? What if we had just made room? But over time, I came to terms with something that I want to share with you. Closure didn't come from some magical moment of peace. It came from a decision to stop punishing myself for something I didn't cause, a decision to stop rewriting the story, a decision to carry the love, but not the weight. And then, while we're on this topic, there was a relationship that broke me open a different way. See, for most of my life, I was the one that was unfaithful in relationships. Not because I didn't care, but I didn't know how to handle closeness. Because deep down, I felt like I was going to be abandoned. And so I just sabotaged the relationships first so I could control the pain. As dumb as that sounds. So I became the person that hurt people. And I carried guilt for that for a long time. And then one day, it happened to me. I got cheated on. And it was like everything that I had done that came back to face me. And not out of punishment, but to teach me. You know, I was now facing my karmic debt. And it hit hard. You know, not just the betrayal, but the realization that came with it. So this is what it feels like to be on the other side of me. And for a while, if anybody has gone through that, I get it. You want closure. You want to hear the apology. You want to hear the I messed up. And I was no different. I wanted her to apologize. I wanted her to explain why. I wanted the ending to feel clean. I wanted a bow. Because the truth is, when we don't get closure, our brains search for meaning to protect us. We tell ourselves, if I could only understand it, maybe it wouldn't hurt so bad. But the truth is, it wasn't about getting answers. It was about trying to undo that feeling of rejection. So I'm telling you, it's not about the answers. It's trying to undo the feeling of rejection. That's what we're really looking for when we're looking for closure after a breakup. We're not just asking, why did this happen? We're asking, why wasn't I enough? We want them to say something that's going to soften the blow, that helps us feel seen, you know, that rescues our self-worth from the damage. But eventually, I realized it wasn't coming, nor should it have to. And so I sent a message to get something off my chest, not to guilt her, but just to say, I forgive you. Not because she deserved it, but because I had done it to other people. And so I knew that this was my karmic debt being paid. I deserved it. I'd done it for my entire life. And so I knew what it felt like to carry that guilt of doing that to people. I didn't get an apology, but I got peace, not because she closed the loop, but because I chose to. And that's when I learned closure isn't something that you get, it's something that you create. And with that, I discovered my favorite quote of all time. You have to learn to accept the apology that you will never receive. Let me take it a step further, because sometimes that person that you needed closure from is gone. And the moment that they left, the opportunity to say what you needed to say, it goes with them. Maybe it was somebody that you loved, that you fought with before they passed. Maybe you drifted. Maybe the relationship was complicated. And now the door's shut with no way to open it. And here's what no one tells you about that kind of pain. That pain doesn't scream. That pain lingers quietly in the background. You go on with your life. You smile, you function, but part of you is still stuck in that unfinished moment, still holding those words that you never got to say. I'm sorry. I forgive you. I didn't mean it. Or maybe just, I love you. And then, you know, when there's no one left to say it to, we turn it inward. And that's what guilt does. It tricks your brain into believing that the only way to make peace is to keep suffering, to carry that weight a little further, to hold on to that pain as a way of, you know, honoring what you lost. But I want you to hear me, because this part is important. You don't have to carry guilt to prove that you cared. You don't have to keep punishing yourself for what was left unsaid. The love was real, even if the ending was messy, even if the goodbye never came. And I know your brain keeps trying to finish the conversation, to close the loop, to make it right. That's normal. That's human. But peace isn't going to come from rewinding the past. It comes from giving yourself permission to move forward anyway. You can still speak the words. You can still write the letter. You can still cry it out. You can still forgive yourself. You may not get a reply, but that doesn't mean that the healing's not real, because healing isn't for them. The healing is for you. And if no one has told you this yet, you're allowed to stop carrying it. You're allowed to put it down. You're allowed to breathe again. You've held on long enough. This isn't about forgetting them. This isn't about pretending it didn't matter. It's about remembering them without carrying the pain. It's about letting go of what's been keeping you stuck so you can finally start to live again. You're not betraying their memory by healing. You're honoring it. And I know it's not easy, but you don't have to take 10 steps today. Just take one. So, how do you move forward when you never got the ending that you hoped for? When you didn't get to say those words? When they never owned what they did? Or they're not here to answer for it? You stop waiting and you start deciding. Because the truth is, closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something that you create, and not in one big decision, but in small daily decisions. You need to get honest about what you're still carrying. What are you still hoping to hear? What version of the ending are you waiting on? Sometimes just acknowledging what you're holding is the first step to setting it down. Next is you need to say what you need to say. Even if they're not here, even if they would never listen. Write the letter, speak it out loud. Not for them, this is for you. This is to move it from your heart to the surface so that you can let it go, so that you can move on. Again, let me reiterate, you need to accept the apology that you'll never receive. I know this one's hard, probably the hardest, but at some point, you have to stop handing your peace to people who don't know what to do with it. You don't need their permission to heal. You don't need their validation to forgive. You can let go without their involvement because healing has to do with you, not them. Next, you need to decide how you want that story to live in you, because that's the part that you still get to write. You can hold on to the pain, or you can carry the lesson. You can stay stuck in what you didn't get, or you can move forward with who you're becoming because of it. And this is the decision point, not for anybody else, for you. You're not erasing what happened. You're just refusing to be ruled by it anymore. And maybe it doesn't feel like much right now, but every time you choose peace over replaying that pain, you're closing the loop. You're rewriting the ending, and you're healing one breath at a time, one choice at a time. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but it's not that easy. I can't just decide to move on. And you're right, because this is not just about logic. It's about the emotional programming that tells us that we're not allowed to let go, that closure has to come from them, that healing only counts if somebody witnesses it, or that if we move forward without an apology, that we're somehow letting them off the hook or betraying ourselves. But that belief that healing has to come from somebody else, that's a lie. And it's one that we've been conditioned to believe by movies, by culture, by our own wounded patterns. But closure isn't a gift that somebody can give you. It's a boundary that you create within yourself. You don't need their validation to feel whole. You don't need their permission to be free. The moment you realize that is the moment that you take your power back. Now I want you to picture something. What if you weren't carrying it anymore? Seriously, just imagine that for a second. No more rehearsing what you wish they would have said. No more going back and wondering how it could have ended differently. No more waiting on them to give you something that they clearly aren't going to give you. Just peace. You're not stuck in it. You're not hoping that they text you. You're not playing out fake conversations in your head. You're just free. You're not constantly wondering why it happened. You're not trying to make it make sense anymore. You've stopped needing to fix something that already ended, and you feel lighter. You feel clear. You feel steady, not because the pain didn't happen, but because you finally stopped letting it run your life. And that version of you, the one who doesn't overthink anymore, the one who can finally breathe without replaying that moment, they're not far away. They're just on the other side of that decision. The decision to stop holding on, to stop waiting, the decision to close the loop, even if it doesn't feel perfect. That's who you're becoming. Not someone who forgets, Not someone who pretends it didn't matter, but someone who's not ruled by it anymore. You're not carrying the weight of what broke you. You're carrying the strength of who you had to become. And if you lost someone and they're not here anymore, and there are words that were left unsaid, I want you to hear me. You're allowed to heal. You're allowed to forgive yourself for what didn't get said. You're allowed to stop replaying that last conversation. You're allowed to stop punishing yourself for not knowing what you know now. They knew you loved them, even if it was messy, even if the ending wasn't clean. And carrying guilt is not how you honor them. Living well is how you honor them. You don't have to carry it forever. You've carried it long enough. Now just take a second. You've heard a lot. You've felt a lot. Maybe you're holding back tears. Maybe something just clicked for you. Or maybe for the first time in your life, you're realizing that you don't have to stay stuck in that moment. Let that settle. This is probably the part where most people close the video and move on. But if you're still here, then that means you're meant to hear it. And there's something inside of you that's ready to shift. So let's talk about what to do now. You've heard the stories. You've felt the truth. You've seen where the pain really comes from. And maybe for the first time, you're starting to realize that you've been holding on. But not because you're weak. It's because your brain was trying to protect you from the pain that it didn't understand. Psychologically, we don't just crave closure. We crave resolution. We crave meaning. We crave a story that makes the ending feel less confusing. Because confusion makes us feel powerless. And so we try to build clarity out of the wreckage, even if it keeps us stuck in the past. But now you see it for what it is. And now it's time to do something about it. So here's what I want you to do. Decide what you're no longer going to carry. Write it down. Say it out loud. I'm done carrying the guilt for blank. I'm done holding my peace hostage to someone else's silence. I'm done needing their apology to feel free. Because identifying the weight is how you're able to put it down. The next thing is you need to say what needs to be said. To them if they're still here. To yourself if they're not. You can write it, you can voice it, but don't leave it swirling inside of you anymore. Get it out. Because silence isn't strength. Burying it is not giving you peace. And you deserve it. The next thing is you need to accept that that version of closure that you wanted may never come. But that doesn't mean that you can't have peace. It just means that your healing is going to have to come from within you. Not from a conversation or a confession or somebody finally getting it. It has to come from within you. And that's a good thing because now the power is back in your hands. Next is you can choose how the story ends. Because that's the part that no one else can take from you. They might have shaped the moment, but you get to shape the meaning. And finally, don't rush it. This kind of dealing with it, this kind of healing, it's not about forcing closure. It's about creating space for it to finally take root. And the more honest you are with yourself, the more free that you're going to feel. You're not broken. You're not too late. You're not weak for feeling it this deeply, but you are strong enough to stop letting it control you. Today doesn't have to be the day that you forget, but maybe it's the day that you stop reliving it.